Welcome to another edition of Living Simply and Fun. I'm your host, Moppy. That's Daddy, and that's Mommy Rita, aka Aries with a hat on. Today's episode is going to be about Gene Shepard's book. Yeah. Wanda Hickey's Night of Golden Memories. Yeah. Take it away, Daddy-o.
Sorry, the library thing's over it. It was a very good book, in my opinion. It actually worked very well with the last one that we did. The what was it called again?
It was called "In God We Trust, for All Others Pay Cash." And the story of that book is all because at the end, when Ralphie Parker, aka Gene Shepard, looks above the sign and it says in the bar, "For all others pay cash."
A big difference between that one and this one. Sorry, I read this one like 2 weeks ago, and it's kind of fuzzy in my mind a bit. But it doesn't have the same thing of him going into Flick's bar and talking to Flick and reminiscing. This is just kind of written. And the chapters are much, much longer, and there's less of them. And it's more about his older teen years for the most part, and his relationships rather than his childhood misadventures. Some of the book is, including the Bumpus Hounds and his Proms with Scut Farkas, which have almost nothing to do with the Christmas story. But I did like the story of the stolen ham rather than it being a stolen turkey in the movie.
Ah, yes, they took the parts of the movie for this one, for the Christmas movie, and put it in here into, into it. It says mostly the credits go for all others pay, in God we trust, for all others we pay cash. Now, the first one was pretty good, the Grandstand Passion Play, which of the Dilbert and the Bumpus Hounds, which was really good, like he said. The second one, the County Fair, at first, Aaron didn't give me anything away except for the last story, which kind of was a disappointment because he's telling me one night on our walk about it, and I was like, I don't want to hear it. But when I got to the end of it, it just was funny, However, Aaron was wrong about one thing. Aaron said in the book that in the last story, at the last part of the book, Ralphie, a.k.a. Gene Shepard, Ralphie Shepard is what he called himself.
Yes, in this book he's Ralphie Shepard rather than Ralphie Parker.
Anyways, in the book, he basically says, my dad ordered a triple, whereas Aaron said 3 fingers. Well, no, it's not 3 fingers. It's a triple, for bourbon. But the County Fair I enjoyed immensely. At first, I thought the first story was kind of interesting, where the ham was stolen and they had to go to the Chinese place. That was in the movie, but it was a turkey. Scut Farkas.
And it was Easter.
Scut Farkas and the Murderous Mariah. I thought that story was really interesting good. Because
it was actually all about tops. The things with the cords around them, and you pull them and they go.
Anyways, I enjoyed it because one part of it is Ralphie's on his paper route, and he goes into
he's searching for the
perfect. The best, and he goes across town to a shady neighborhood, which he can't find ever again in the story, he says. But when he ran in and he got his top, it reminds me of stuff I would have done in the past in the middle of the night. Going to like 5 miles, 7 miles to 7-Eleven one way on my bike to get a money order. Secretly, of course. Ollie Hoopin' Noodle's Haven of Bliss was just something funny that brought me to thinking about me and Aaron. And the way that we took
family
some vacations, like I went to Kentucky, I went to Ohio, but I also was thinking about...
But I had family vacations like that where we packed up the house and came up with lists, and everybody was worried they left this behind. Heck, one year we actually left the dog behind, and we didn't get to find out until we were at the dog borders. And we're like, wait, we're at the dog borders. Where's the dog? Oh, no! And so we had to go all the way home and get the dog.
Anyways, the thing I liked about Ollie Hoopin' Noodles is thinking about my past in vacations, how we took mini vacations I was thinking about what if something like that happened with me and Aaron and Angela. Angela is supposed to be coming with us to Glacier National Park, Grand Teton.
And it would actually be like that because we would come up with our packing list to make sure that we had everything with us. And we would be going on a grand adventure. So.
And then the star-crossed romance of Josephine Kisnowski. I didn't understand part of it, but Aaron explained it to me, and I won't break it down. But it was just too funny when he told me about it, and how the Polish women were back then, And
I don't even know if that was true, but apparently his one school chum ended up disappearing from their lives and dropping out of school and working like 3 jobs to support his wife.
And 3 kids.
And 3 kids. And, well, he found out that the girl that he knew was, like, related to the girl that married him, and she had eyes on him and was going to bring him into the family. And, well, he kind of got scared and worried about it, and well, also had made a comment about how he was sexually interested in her in front of the uncle, which he didn't know at that time was the uncle, but he knew that guy recognized him and was like, uh-oh. So he kind of booked it from it. And I could see that happening to me or somebody else.
Me too.
I wouldn't necessarily get afraid due to the fact that the girl was Polish, which is what the story was, but a girl in general who seems to be that way, yeah, that kind of worry me, like a family, where the 4 daughters or whatever all have guys that seem physically drained and demoralized of all things living except for work. And that would scare me right there. I'd be like, I'm not going to become some type of thing that a parasite's latched onto, sucked everything out that it can, and I'm just going about my day.
And then the other stories were Daphne Goodlow and the spy-chilling saga, the snail-encrusted tinfoil noose, where he was dating a rich girl. And I said...
And of course, he was so nervous that he's just messing everything up. And you know what? I would be the same way, too, if in my situation, if I was dating some rich girl and had to go pick her up. I'd be intimidated, too. And pretty much probably everything that could go wrong would go wrong.
The next one is the Return of the Smiling Wimpy Doll, is where he actually talked a story about how he had flashbacks off and on. But
that was one of my favorite because when I was a kid, I got into my dad's toy box, which had all of his toys in it, and there was a bunch of things in there I figured were useless. But, he describes a smell in there of the toy box, and I know that smell from going through my dad's toy box, that musty kind of stale, wettish stink that just hangs on everything because it's been in storage in a basement in a cardboard box for so long. And I know the smell, and I know going through things like that, and I wonder what significance did this hold to my dad that it got kept for some reason. And then I wonder, what would my box be like? What if my dad sent me my old toys? And would it be the things that I most remember or things that I'd totally forgotten about? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And then,
so I love the story because it meant something.
And then finally, I gotta say it again, Wanda Hickey's Night of Golden Memories is the final chapter. What I thought was good was he wanted to get back together with the rich girl for some reason. Instead, he ended up with a girl that he knew from like 2nd grade, and it was just
who was always following him around and obviously had an interest in him.
And I do want to say,
no matter how drunk and how stupid he acted, she still loved him. It seems.
And I wanted to say something, and I know Gene Shepard's dead. He's in heaven. He'll probably listen to this and probably haunt me tonight for it. But I am kind of disappointed in his 2nd book and his 1st book for a reason. In the 1st book and the 2nd book, Gene Shepard, maybe he wrote it without even thinking about it. Maybe it's pure fake and not true.
That's what a lot of people have said, is that the stories are made up. But you know what? Almost every story I've read, there's something I can relate to.
Anyways, just let me finish. In the story, I was disappointed because some say that this is actually his stories in real life because he was from home in Indiana. But what's the one thing that you've read in the first 2 books, since we haven't read the one, it's a fistful of knit?
I don't know.
He never talked about in his Manhattan
home
his brother.
Wife. Or being married.
Yes.
Actually, it seems that in his 1st book, he was sitting there reminiscing about being at a gallery or whatever, remember? And it's the one that was the intro to the leg lamp story. And he was talking to this girl, and he was thinking how he was making passes at her and how he might end up with her. And then all of a sudden, the guy came up to her, and he was like, oh. So, obviously, by that point in the 1st one, he was still single in New York, so...
Well, apparently he was married twice.
And this kind of lets you believe he was still single by the time he'd written this, too, which... Who knows?
Yeah, well,
know.
both books were written in like the 60s and
That's
70s.
71.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, and we can't get the third book, unfortunately, because the library will not buy a new one, and the other one has been considered lost.
The books, okay, I have to tell a story about the second book, okay? The second book, for some of you out there, each story was sent separately. The entire book story was put in separately from 66, 67, 68, 69, 70 by Playboy magazine.
Yes, they were originally written for Playboy. Even though there's nothing perverted or dirty about any of the stories at all. Oh. So, yes, no perversion, no dirtiness. So when people say, I buy Playboy for the stories, some people were actually reading this.
Nowadays,
this has nothing to do with pornography. There's nothing in here that's going to make a guy sit there and be like, oh, yeah.
No offense to our viewers, to Angela and Heather watching it. I do want to say from the bottom of my heart.
But there's nothing pervy.
Yes, exactly.
So that's what I'm trying to say.
I'm trying to say is, my mother, to teach me the birds and bees.
There's no male spank material.
Got me into Playboy, and my mom liked it for the stories. She had to censor everything for me. When I got it, the stories, some of them were good, some of them were bad. I like the little catalogs in the back, but I got each and every one. My stepbrother was the one that I.
That actually kind of shocks me that the stories came from there. So.
Yes, but anyways, enough about that. But anyways, I was disappointed in that. That was the first thing I was disappointed. Well, there's no wife. The second story I was disappointed was he never talks about his brother, which sounds like he's retarded.
Yes. Well, no, that's not it. I'll get to that. But please, please, please do not pass up on these books just because they originally appeared in Playboy. There is nothing that is sexually motivated at all in any of this.
I will say that there is one little slight sexual thing, but he's talking about how his male puberty was getting, his hot dog was getting bigger for thinking of a girl. Yeah, but otherwise that was it.
Oh, the way that it's mentioned, though, it's totally innocent.
However, for some of you out there...
You make it sound bad.
I wanted to say something. For some of you out there reading this book, you might take offense to some of the words like the GD word.
Yeah, they like that one a lot in there.
Yes, and SOB.
Yeah, not so much, but they do use it, too. The other thing that we wanted to mention was the fact that it seems that Ralphie's little brother... what was his name again? Randy never, ever, ever grows up. He seems to be the same age in this as he was in the first book, the Christmas Story book, basically.
In God We Trust, for all others pay cash.
It seems he's the same age, except for Ralphie's aged. And if Randy's aged, he hasn't aged maturely at all. He's still the same little brat kid that cries to mama.
Every time I read a story and he talked about his kid brother, I think of the movie The Christmas Story. The little picture Randy there, you know. Every time I turn around. Then I picture Ralphie, the successful one, you know. But in the movie, A Christmas Story, they must have censored out the fact that Gavin, that was his name, the guy that played the dad in The Christmas Story, never smoked Luckies. He never even smoked a pipe.
Now, it could be possible that in the early Christmas Story book, the first one, Randy was like 2 to 3 years old. And even though like 7 or 8 years have passed, Randy's like 9 or 10, you know.
He was like
so,
more
well,
like
6 years have passed. Because he was like 11 or 12 in the first book. So
no, 9 in the first book because
9.
of
okay, so 6 years may have passed, and if 6 years passed and his brother was 3 in the first one, then maybe his brother's 9, which would still have him being an immature little child.
He was supposed to be 6 years old in the Christmas movie because
it really makes it sound like he's 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 all the way across the board and never grows up. However, I did get a picture because here's the older brother, right? And I had friends like this. They'd have a little brother, and their little brother would be like 13 or 14, but be almost as big as them. And there's a scene where he's wearing a Flash Gordon t-shirt.
And it gets wet and
gets wet and it shrinks on him. And I'm sitting there thinking of like, you know, one of those cut-off tank tops. And it's all tight and everything on him. And he goes in and cries to his mom about it shrinking. And you know, the belly button and the short shorts and like bright orange short shorts with this pale green, tight, shriveled up shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing I liked about that...
Now, I don't know why I get that picture. It's just one of those things that... It's almost like watching Joe Dirt and thinking of him...
Joe Dirt
with him dancing down the railroad tracks, listening to the boombox, like, with a mullet and stuff, listening to, like, 80s... pop music rather than Def Leppard or whatever.
I also like the fact that if you do some research on certain things, like he was talking about in the past, like gas, how much it would cost for gas each. It was like $2 for a fill-up. Or how he saved his money back then, and he was talking about a corsage being in a junior prom.
The prices
being
were about
$8
right.
for a corsage. He also talked about other things, but I enjoyed the thing because he was talking about, like, at Christmas time, in the first Christmas story, he was talking about how he had to buy the blimp, and it was wrapped. Or he was talking about Christmas in here, and he was talking about investing his money in his kid brother's catcher's mitt.
And one thing that I really liked in here, too, is they talk about the prom that he goes to. It's the junior prom, not the senior prom. But he's driving a convertible, and he leaves the top down, and it's a nice, beautiful night. But by the time they get out of prom, it's pouring. And that's a lot like my prom. We had a nice, beautiful night. We get to prom. We're on a boat, though, so that was kind of cool. And it started raining right near the end of prom, and we all had to go inside the boat. And towards just after the end of prom, we were going through the parking lot, running towards our cars and stuff, and getting in. And but it's inevitable. You know, you go to prom and it's going to probably rain no matter how nice it is. I don't know why that is. I don't know. It just reminded me of my own for some reason, even though I had a limo.
I didn't have a prom.
Well, you never made it into high school.
I did, 9th grade.
Well, yeah.
It would have been freshman prom, but...
There is no freshman prom.
In my school, there was...
The closest you would have had probably would have been your 8th grade dinner dance.
I said the 9th grade had prom because we had the tickets. There was freshman, sophomore, junior princesses and king and princess, and then there was the
You're
senior
probably thinking
queen
the homecoming
and king.
dance.
No, actually, it was in the book. The book has the pictures of them, and it was disgusting. But oh well.
Well, strange that your school had a freshman prom. Ours didn't. We had a senior prom, that was it. No junior prom, no sophomore prom, no freshman prom. I did enjoy my 8th grade dinner dance, though. That was a weird night.
I didn't have a dinner dance.
That was one of the first nights that I ever got really wasted.
On weed?
Yeah, I met up with some guys from my school, and they had weed, and we got wasted. And then the next year, we ended up crashing the 8th grade dinner dance and got thrown out and had the cops called on us, and, well, we booked it before they got there.
I enjoyed the thingy where we had to go to this thing for graduation, and the teacher dragged me to Costco and other places to go get pins and stuff, and, well, it was a night I would never forget. The 7th grader... he had to go with. He was a, teacher didn't want to take him.
But anyways, these are great stories about childhood from one person's life, and almost every one of these stories, particularly if you're a guy, but not necessarily, will end up reminding you of your own childhood.
If you had a good one.
Now, of course, the only reason I say guy is because Ralphie is a boy, so he does more boyish things. But there are girls who do boyish things too. It's just some of the puberty area stuff is definitely probably going to affect more towards a male than towards a female. But then again, I don't know. I've never been female at puberty to know whether those are similar thoughts and feelings. So this book may actually appeal to everyone.
I do want to make a joke to
definitely
you people watching this, including
however,
you.
it is not as good as the first one.
I do want to say before we go, just out of poops and giggles, not to offend anyone. If Heather, you're watching, or Angela, you're watching, this is just my own opinion. But me and Aaron were watching a show. I can't remember what's her name is. That old hag, that's on the. That does that news media thing. It wasn't Katie Couric, but it was that old one,
Old hag lady.
You know, the one that does the news anchor stuff. It had that one lady. The boy was becoming the girl, the 12-year-old.
I don't
Me
know.
and you saw it.
I don't remember who. So,
anyways, there's this. Yeah, I'll move it along. Anyways,
Old
there was a
hag
story of
That's
this
real
woman.
descriptive.
Remember the story on YouTube?
Yes, I know the story. Old hag lady, though, does not fit appropriately. I don't know who you're referring to. I don't remember, and I do remember the story. I just don't remember who did it.
Diane Sawyer. Diane Sawyer.
There
did
you go.
a story,
Diane Sawyer's an old hag lady.
Yeah, well, she is.
So whenever Rita says old hag lady in front of me, I'll just say Diane Sawyer.
Okay, sorry everyone. There was a story about a transgendered person who was being a boy, born a boy, now it's 12. Has a
the
YouTube
parents
channel.
started putting him through
Hormone therapy
at 5, and they started dressing him full time as a girl at like 2.
Now they are like 13 years old, and for some of you out there that come across this, I'm going to say this. Unless we go through and see how their puberty is at 12 to see if they're a normal girl, which they're not. No offense to Heather and Angela, because I know you support transgenderism. I personally think, you know, that's not a good way.
Well, girls are not as open about talking about puberty and their emotions and feelings towards the males of their class at the time that they were going through puberty as guys are. It's known that most guys, when they start hitting puberty, the first thing they start doing is fapping all the time. I don't mean all the time. I mean like once a week or something, and usually the first time scares the shit out of them. None of them will admit it. So there are things that men usually won't admit either. And how it happens, I couldn't tell you. Some guys like it, some guys don't. Who knows why? I don't know. But this isn't about that.
No,
so,
the transgender thing was
I guess
kind of a...
this brings up puberty, so we got talking about
That's why I
puberty.
said the puberty thing. Apparently this transgendered girl's going to be going through female puberty, supposedly, but they still have hot dogs. So how they go through it, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how they could go through a female puberty if they still have male parts, but they say they're attracted to boys. So,
to each their own.
Anyways, I didn't really want to get into talking
That's
about...
all I want to say. So, you know, no offense to any of you out there, but this book, I give it 5 stars.
Yeah, I give it 5 too. And don't let our talks about puberty and perversion affect you on it. There is nothing perverted.
No, this book is really great. So with that said, everyone, we got to get out of here and walk our doggies.
Yeah, I'm in a lot of pain tonight. I want to just go home and sleep.
Yeah, so please add and subscribe if you like. Please post comments in the box if you like. Please add us as a friend. Please subscribe. Please leave feedback and comments. Thank you. And may God bless the world.